She was born into a small town in Germany on a summer day in 1941, at a moment when the world around her was changing faster than anyone could predict. The girl who would become known to the public as Liz Mohn, Elisabeth Beckmann, in those early years, grew up away from the glare of big city spotlight, learning lessons that would later guide a life spent at the unusual intersection of business, culture, and charity. Her story is one of quiet ascent, not the meteoric rise of a self-made magnate, but the steady accumulation of influence and purpose that turned a telephone operator and dental hygienist into one of Germany's most visible philanthropic figures and a leading presence behind one of Europe's largest media empires. What makes Liz's tale compelling isn't only the money or the titles. It's the way she moved through rooms that once might have kept her at the edge, company offices, symphony halls, foundation boardrooms, and gradually rewrote her own role inside them. This voiceover will take you through the chapters of that life, the formative years, the improbable workplace romance that changed everything, the slow carving out of a public mission in arts and health, and the exact mechanics by which influence became wealth. Along the way, there are small human moments, a passion for music, a devotion to causes born out of family medical fear, and a stubborn belief that culture builds bridges that make her more than a name on a balance sheet. She began work early. After finishing school, Liz trained as a dental hygienist, a practical trade, hands-on, focused on serving people close to home. But curiosity pulled her toward the hum of office life. She applied for a job as a telephone operator at Bertelsmann, the Gütersloh-based publishing house that had grown from a small printing operation into a national name. The company's book club and its catalog of publications were, in the post-war decades, engines of cultural rebuilding in Germany. For a young woman from Wiedenbrück, a place of modest means, it was a door into a different world. And behind that door, she met Reinhard Mohn. The exact details read like something out of a novel. Two people who worked in the same company, who found an unlikely intimacy in the everyday. One retelling even describes the first spark as something that began during a company game. Their relationship would be complicated and private for years. Reinhard was already part of the founding family that had remade Bertelsmann into an international media group, a man with a reputation for strategic brilliance and bold institutional reforms. Liz, at first, was an insider in the modest way many are, connected to the company by a job, part of its social fabric, not yet a public figure. Their personal relationship would become a turning point. They married in 1982. From then on, over the decades, Liz's life was no longer just a private story. It was a chapter in the unfolding life of a corporate dynasty. But she did not insist on a quiet backstage role. She chose to step forward, to learn, to influence, and to build her own projects in culture and health that would eventually carry her name. One of the elements that marks Liz Mohn's public identity is her love of music, not as a casual hobby, but as a lifelong conviction about what the arts can do. Inspired by encounters with great figures in music, and convinced that talent often needs structures of support as much as it needs practice, she launched initiatives to promote young singers. The Neue Stimmen competition, an international forum for discovering opera talent, is one such creation. The contest has become a recognized stage for emerging voices, an example of how a private initiative can open pathways for artists from around the world. For Liz, culture was never merely decorative. It was a form of investment in social cohesion, a language that crosses borders and builds empathy. Her philanthropy also grew in more urgent directions. In 1992, she founded the German Stroke Foundation. This project came from a personal place, a medical scare in her family that brought home how fragile health can be and how crucial public awareness and prevention are. The foundation's work, education, research support, patient assistance, reflects a pragmatic approach to charity. Find a problem that can be alleviated by information and coordinated effort, then commit to creating lasting structures to address it. Through fundraising events, public campaigns, and institutional partnerships, Liz built a network of support that turned a private fear into a public cause. By the turn of the millennium, she had taken on governance roles within the broader Bertelsmann Group and its charitable arms. The ownership of Bertelsmann is complex, a weave of family shares, foundations, and holding structures, and navigating that system required both patience and an understanding of institutional architecture. Liz became a member of advisory boards, of the foundation's executive circles, and of the governance bodies that helped steer the company. For many observers, she embodied a combination of the personal, the widow and partner of Reinhard Mohn, and the institutional, a steward of the family's charitable and corporate legacy. How does influence translate into wealth in a company like Bertelsmann? The short answer is structural. The Mohn family and the associated foundations hold significant stakes and voting arrangements that keep the company largely within family control. Over decades of growth, book clubs that expanded into television, music publishing, global book publishing through mergers, and the diversification into services like Arvado, the company's value ballooned. When assets are held across family members and foundations, personal net worth can follow. For Liz, that meant the financial resources to fund larger philanthropic ambitions and to play a decisive role in family governance even after Reinhard's death. Money, though, is only the instrument. What Liz Mohn used it for, the initiatives she championed, the cultural platforms she created, the medical campaigns she supported, is what defines her public profile. Her interventions in the arts aren't mere sponsorship. They are curated projects aimed at changing who gets to be heard. Her health projects aren't just checks written to institutions. They include organizational leadership, partnerships with medical professionals, and events designed to keep the dialogue alive in civil society. She has been willing to lend not just money, but time, name, and voice. There are also personal anecdotes that illuminate her character. She is known for a kind of old-fashioned social grace, the polished public speaker who knows the value of ceremony, receptions, and meetings that feel like rituals of civic life. Yet she is not merely ceremonial. Those closest to her describe a person who is meticulous about details, who follows projects through from idea to delivery, and who delights in the particular, in the quality of a musical performance, the careful selection of young artists, the precise architecture of a foundation's bylaws. Part of her public persona is also the way she handled the transition after Reinhard's death in 2009. Changes at the top of a media conglomerate rooted in family ownership are never purely technical. They involve loyalties, expectations, and the question of how to marry professional management with family stewardship. Liz took on responsibilities in the foundation and the governance bodies, and while she eventually passed the operational reins to the next generation, her son Christoph became a visible leader in the family's business structure. She remained a powerful presence. Her influence has often been exercised behind the scenes, advising, advocating, shaping nominations, and ensuring continuity in a business that values legacy. That continuity matters because Bertelsmann is not a small company. It is a sprawling, diversified enterprise with publishing giants, broadcasters, music units, and a formidable services arm. Its transformation over the 20th and 21st centuries, from a local printer to a global media player, is partly the story of Reinhard Mohn's managerial innovations, but also of the family's capacity to manage complexity across generations. Liz's role has been to preserve, to adjust, and to add a philanthropic overlay that extends the family's footprint beyond balance sheets into civic and cultural influence. Yet public life is never untouched by critique. Questions about inherited wealth and the nature of family-controlled conglomerates are part of contemporary debate. What does it mean for a company to remain in family hands in a world that prizes both meritocratic leadership and broad ownership? Liz has often positioned her philanthropy as a counterbalance, that with great private resources comes a responsibility to fund the common good. Whether one accepts that framing at face value or regards it as the legitimizing rhetoric of elites, it is clear that her philanthropic projects have deep roots and long timelines, not the occasional headline-grabbing donation, but sustained institutional work. Beyond the headlines, though, the texture of her life is an accumulation of small decisions that reveal a worldview. She believes in the educative power of culture. She believes in the slow work of philanthropy that establishes institutions rather than fleeting gestures. She believes that a family business can be a civic actor when it accepts the duties that follow from private advantage. These are, in their way, conservative beliefs, an emphasis on continuity, on legacy, on structures that endure. But they are also progressive in effect, because many of her projects, music education for children, stroke awareness, cross-cultural artistic exchange, aim to open opportunities and reduce suffering. In recent years, Liz Mohn has reorganized and consolidated her philanthropic work to ensure it endures beyond any single personality. The creation of a centralized foundation to house the Liz Mohn Center and other initiatives demonstrates an eye to institutional longevity. Foundations, when well-structured, can preserve the continuity of mission across leadership changes. They can professionalize philanthropy and link it to research, policy, and public engagement. For Liz, this step reflects a recognition that good intentions need good organizational frameworks if they are to become lasting forces for change. Her commitment to culture, in particular, remains an evergreen part of her legacy. Opera competitions, music education initiatives in schools, programs that bring artists across borders. These are the kinds of projects that won't produce immediate returns in economic terms, but which create human capital in the most intangible and persuasive ways. Music, she often says in speeches, connects people. It is not an epigraph to her life, it is a lens through which she views the work of public service. There is also an interesting tension in Liz Mohn's public image. She is a figure of elegance and ceremony, the gracious hostess at gala events, and at the same time someone who has made institutional decisions that carry economic weight. She moves between different worlds, the aesthetic and the strategic, and that movement gives her a versatility not often seen in private philanthropists. It also explains why she continues to be a relevant voice in a family enterprise that must constantly adapt to technological change, market pressures, and shifts in global cultural consumption. If you look at the arc of her life, the lesson is not simply about legacy or money. It is about the choices an individual can make when placed at an institutional crossroads. Liz could have remained a private beneficiary of a family fortune, content to play social host and to enjoy the privileges that come with inherited wealth. Instead, she chose to direct a significant portion of that privilege toward public-facing projects, often in areas that require patience and professional management. That, perhaps, is the more intriguing part of her biography, the transformation from private person to public instigator. To understand how she became a billionaire in practical terms, you have to understand ownership, shares, trusts, foundations, and the way family holdings are arranged. But to understand how she used that status, you have to focus on mission, the causes she prioritized, the institutions she built, and the networks she formed. Both elements are necessary to explain her influence in German public life and in the larger European cultural sphere. And then there is the human element. Those who have encountered Liz describe a woman who knows how to listen, who makes time for mentorship, and who holds firm to the idea that the next generation should be given both responsibility and the tools to learn. She has shepherded leadership transitions in the family business with a combination of firmness and discretion, favoring gradual handovers rather than sudden overhauls. Her public speeches often return to the theme of education and of building bridges between cultures, between generations, between business interests and civic responsibilities. Looking forward, the work she has established carries with it questions about adaptation. How will arts patronage evolve in a digital age? How will public health education adjust to new media ecosystems? How will family-controlled companies navigate governance in an era that prizes transparency and shareholder debate? Liz Mohn's answer has been to invest not just in institutions, but in frameworks that allow those institutions to study, experiment, and respond. Research, partnerships with universities, and a willingness to support pilot projects are all part of that approach. At the end of the day, the story of Liz Mohn is both simple and layered. It is the story of a woman who began a life in modest professional roles and by degree of relationship, conviction, and organizational skill, transformed herself into a steward of an immense cultural and economic legacy. It is the story of someone who married into a business dynasty and then chose to shape parts of that dynasty's public face through music competitions, health foundations, and civic centers that carry her name. It is, finally, the story of how public life can be made from private resources if those resources are married to the deliberate intent to build enduring institutions. If there is a single through line in Liz Mohn's life, it is this: the conviction that private influence should be used to weave public goods, that culture matters because it binds communities together, and that institutions, carefully built and patiently sustained, are the best vehicles for carrying that belief into the future. She is a figure of continuity in a fast-moving world, a reminder that some forms of leadership are not loud and sudden, but steady, shaping the next chapters through care, ceremony, and the slow art of institution building. Her legacy will be debated, like any life lived under public scrutiny. But the projects that bear her name, the competitions, the foundations, the civic initiatives, will remain as material evidence of how she chose to spend influence. And for an audience watching and listening, that combination of culture, strategy, and personal conviction is the reason Liz Mohn's life reads like a study in stewardship, an example of how one person can turn fortune into something that, at least in aspiration, aims to do good.